September 1944. The German Panther and Tiger tanks represented the pinnacle of armoured warfare technology, with frontal armour that could shrug off most Allied shells and the devastating long-range 75mm gun on the Panther, not to mention the legendary 88mm on the Tiger. These machines had earned a fearsome reputation. Allied tankers had learned to respect, even fear, the German heavy armour. German doctrine relied heavily on this technological superiority to dominate armoured engagements, compensating for their dwindling numbers with superior firepower and protection. But in the rolling fields of eastern France, something happened that shattered this myth completely. The question German commanders would ask themselves with genuine disbelief was simple: what could possibly stop such machines? The answer would prove far more complex than the thickness of armour plate. By mid-September 1944, General George S. Patton's Third Army had conducted a lightning advance across France following the breakout from Normandy. But the chase had consequences. Patton's spearhead had outrun its supply lines, and a critical fuel shortage forced a temporary halt near the Moselle River. The US 12th Corps had established a bridgehead at Dieulouard, and the 4th Armoured Division had pushed a thinly held salient 25 miles east of the Moselle, concentrated around the small town of Arracourt. This pause gave the Germans exactly what they needed: time to counterattack. General Hasso von Manteuffel's newly formed 5th Panzer Army assembled approximately 262 tanks and assault guns for a counter-offensive. The bulk of this force consisted of the fearsome Panther tanks, organised into the hastily formed Panzer Brigades 111 and 113, supported by elements of the 11th Panzer Division. The mission was straightforward: recapture Lunéville, eliminate the American bridgehead, and crush the exposed US forces at Arracourt. German intelligence, relying on poor reconnaissance, had convinced the High Command that the Americans were overextended, disorganized, and vulnerable. The technical superiority of the Panther would do the rest. It seemed like a calculated risk with high probability of success. They were catastrophically wrong. The landscape around Arracourt was deceptive. Rolling hills, patchy forests, and open farmland bordered by large hedges created countless opportunities for concealment and ambush. The terrain featured small ridges and elevation changes that, while subtle, could hide an entire tank company from observation. Then came the weather. On September 18th, as the German offensive began, heavy rain and thick fog blanketed the battlefield. Visibility dropped to mere yards. The morning mist clung to the valleys and ridges like a shroud, turning the landscape into a confusing maze where sound replaced sight as the primary sense. This fog became the great equalizer. The Panther's superior long-range gun, capable of destroying a Sherman at distances where the American tank couldn't even scratch the German armour, was suddenly useless. If you couldn't see your target at 1,500 yards, it didn't matter that you could kill it at that range. The technological advantage that German doctrine depended upon evaporated with the morning dew. What the Germans didn't know, and what would prove decisive, was that Combat Command A of the 4th Armoured Division, under Colonel Bruce C. Clark, was anything but disorganized. The Americans possessed a secret weapon that didn't appear on any technical specifications chart: radio communication. Every US tank, every reconnaissance element, every artillery battery, and the tactical air support units were linked by an extensive radio network. Information flowed continuously. When a reconnaissance unit spotted German armour, that intelligence reached tank commanders, artillery observers, and P-47 Thunderbolt pilots within minutes. The Germans, by contrast, suffered from poor radio discipline and limited sets. Their hastily assembled panzer brigades lacked integral reconnaissance units, the eyes and ears of an armoured formation. Many of the crews had received as little as 2 weeks of combined arms training. They were driving superior machines, but they were essentially blind, deaf, and unable to coordinate effectively. American doctrine emphasized something the Germans had overlooked: flexibility and mobility over raw firepower. The 4th Armoured Division practiced a mobile defence using speed and manoeuvre to offset the Shermans' inferior armour and gun, and they had another ace: the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer. Lightly armoured but exceptionally fast, mounting a potent 76mm gun, the Hellcat excelled at ambush tactics, appearing, striking, and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The Americans understood that modern armoured warfare wasn't about building the best tank. It was about building the best system. On September 19th and 20th, the main German thrusts began. Panther-equipped columns, often uncoordinated and lacking reconnaissance, advanced through the fog toward what they believed were scattered American positions. They drove straight into a masterfully prepared trap. Colonel Clark's tankers had used the terrain expertly, positioning their Shermans in concealed, dug-in positions along ridgelines and behind hedgerows. They held their fire with remarkable discipline, allowing the Panthers to close range, negating the German advantage. Artillery forward observers called in coordinates. Liaison aircraft, including one piloted by Charles Bazooka Charlie Carpenter, circled overhead when possible, radioing German positions to waiting gun batteries. The fog worked both ways, but the Americans had better intelligence. They knew where the Germans were. The Germans were advancing blind. When the American tankers opened fire, it was devastating. Shermans targeted the weaker side and rear armour of the Panthers. The faster traversing American turrets could track targets more quickly than the German tanks. Hellcats appeared on flanks, fired and vanished. Artillery saturated suspected German positions with high explosive shells. On September 20th, one German thrust nearly reached CCA's headquarters. It was stopped cold by massed artillery fire. Self-propelled howitzers turned into direct-fire anti-tank guns in desperation. In one engagement alone, Company A of the 37th Tank Battalion destroyed 17 Panthers while losing only a single Sherman. Only 5 German tanks escaped. The Panthers were being destroyed before they could even return effective fire. The supposedly inferior American armor was winning decisively. The German reaction can only be described as shock. According to US Army analysis of captured German records, one panzer assault cost them 50 precious tanks and accomplished nothing. After one engagement, American forces captured evidence showing that only 7 tanks and 80 men remained of the entire 111th Panzer Brigade, a formation that had started the battle with dozens of tanks. German commanders discovered that the very fog that gave them initial tactical surprise and protected them from American aircraft had worked catastrophically against them. It negated the superior range of their tank guns and forced them into close-quarters combat, where American advantages in crew training, coordination, and tactics dominated. On September 21st, the weather cleared. This brought another nightmare for the Germans, the 19th Tactical Air Command. P-47 Thunderbolts, nicknamed Jabos by terrified German troops, descended on the battlefield with devastating effect. The ground-air coordination perfected by the 4th Armoured Division allowed pilots to strike German armour with precision. The attacks were relentless. By September 29th, the 5th Panzer Army had lost 118 Panthers, 101 Panzervorwürfe, and 122 tank destroyers and assault guns in the Arracourt sector. American losses, approximately 25 to 40 tanks. The German counteroffensive collapsed. Generaloberst Johannes Blaskowitz, commander of Army Group G, was relieved by Hitler on September 21st, a reflection of the High Command's fury at the failure. The Germans couldn't believe what had stopped their tanks. Not thicker armor, not bigger guns, but superior eyes, superior ears, and superior tactics. The Battle of Arracourt stands as one of the most significant armoured engagements on the Western Front before the Battle of the Bulge. Its lessons reshaped how both sides understood modern armoured warfare. For the Americans, Arracourt confirmed that crew quality, combined arms coordination, effective communication networks, and air-ground integration could overcome technological disadvantages in equipment. The Sherman, often derided as inferior to German armour, had proven that the tank was just one component in a larger interconnected system of modern warfare. For the Germans, the battle exposed the fatal flaws in their approach: hastily trained crews, poor reconnaissance, inadequate radio communication, and a doctrine that placed too much faith in the technical specifications of individual weapons. The Panther's superiority on paper meant nothing when its crew couldn't see the enemy, couldn't communicate with supporting units, and couldn't coordinate maneuvers. The myth of invincibility, whether of the Tiger, the Panther, or any other weapon system, died in the fog-shrouded fields of Lorraine. Arracourt demonstrated an enduring truth of warfare. Battles aren't won by the best machines, but by the best coordinated teams operating those machines. At Arracourt, the Tiger's armour proved strong, but American eyes, ears, and tactics proved stronger.